not in this group, of course. People, So, so to me, it just seemed so fake, Are you, do you really care about anybody? I just didn't understand. But it made me think, like, why are they so judgmental? I didn't understand. And of course, they, not, at least once or twice, right? I heard the one phrase that's going to convert every single person, right? You're going to go to hell. Right? You're going to go to hell. I heard that more than once. Yeah, you're going to go to hell, right? Told me I was going to go to hell, right? The one phrase to convert them all, right? That always works every time, right? Okay. So, after a while, Christianity to me was just a feel-good way to justify one's own self. It was just a feel-good way to justify one's self, right? Just one's way of life while excluding others, right? I'm morally superior to everyone else because I go to this building every week. But most of what they believed in at that point, to me, they were just normal, kind of natural law values, if you guys have studied that, right? Really natural law. My parents taught me the same thing. I don't need to go to church. What do you go to church for, right? It's a waste of time. My parents taught me all of these same virtues that you guys have, right? Just be nice, right? Be honest, don't steal, right? The 10 Commandments, right? Those are very natural law kind of rules, right? And so it's this common courtesy, common virtues that all religions have. So it was to me, Christianity was just one of many different competing equal religions, right? They're all the same. That was until I got into high school, right? And I went for high school. I went to an all-boys Catholic boarding school that was secluded in the hills and run by Nobertine monks. Okay, we did not have a sister school.
From who?
Nobertine monks.
Oh, Nobertine. Okay.
Yeah, and there were we didn't have a sister school, right? We didn't, so it was just us trapped, locked down. But that was where I learned about the higher virtues. And that's when I began to see that Christianity is more than just any other religion, right? So instead of justice, they talked about justice, and justice was a good thing. But what is above justice? Mercy is above justice, right? That's why God shows us mercy, because He is above justice. What else? The difference between liking and loving someone, right? So I could like someone, right? So we have a lot in common, right? We have a good time together, so I like that person. But to love someone, what does that mean? So most people, especially in society, they think love is this, wishy-washy kind of amorphous kind of feeling that it's not very solid. Right? It's not very solid, right? What is love? And it's just a feeling. It's just romance. But what I learned at my high school at St. Michael's is that they taught me that love has an actual definition according to the church. Love means to will the good of another. To will the good of another. And that was so profound to me. Not only did these people have higher virtues, but they were very specific about it. They had clear definitions, right? They knew exactly what they were talking about. Right, and then so on and on, right? Hard work and charity, right? So I work hard, I gain money, but then I have to give it away, right? Because that's something higher, right? It's beyond the natural law, And then honesty and integrity, right? So being honest, everyone knows how to be honest, right? But integrity means that you are honest through and through, and you use that honesty to improve other people. Okay, whereas maybe with Chinese culture, a lot of times we don't totally have that integrity sometimes, right? Sometimes it's okay to lie to get along, and that's kind of part of our culture. And so it was a little bit different. And then so that opened up my mind to the idea that there is natural and there is a possibility of the supernatural, right? Because of these supernatural virtues that are not the natural virtues. It opened up my mind to the supernatural possibility, which was beyond other philosophies and religions. And on top of that, we actually had a philosophy class in our high school, right? And that was where I really asked a lot of questions, right? And they were able to use sources outside of just the Bible. Right, they said, look at these philosophers way before even the time of Christ. Right, look at these modern philosophers. Right now, what did they say? Right? We didn't talk about Kant. We talked a lot more about the Greeks.
Plato.
Socrates.
Yeah, a lot of Socrates, a lot of Plato.
Yeah.
Right, we talked a lot more about them. We talked talked a little bit about, we talked a little bit about Nietzsche, but not so much. We talked a lot more about the ancient Greek philosophers. So, right, and they always answered objections as opposed to telling me, believe this book or you're going to hell. So it appealed to my reason. And praising God is not optional. Right, that's one thing they taught me. Praising God is not optional.
Praising God is
not optional, right? And they gave me good reasons as to why. However, they never had a pompousness about it. Never this air of superiority over anybody because I wasn't Catholic, right? I never felt like they considered themselves morally righteous and I was beneath them in some way. And they showed me love. They really showed me love, despite the fact that I'm not Christian. And I've never the Norbertines, right? And most of you don't know too much about my family background, but when I moved to the States, my parents were divorced, right? And my father, he didn't care too much, and my mother was always here, and that was for 20-some years. So I did not have a very good understanding of this familial, unconditional love that some of you might have experienced growing up. And so they showed me love, like, and they had nothing to gain from it. They had absolutely nothing to gain from it.
How did they show you love?
Well, they spent the time to teach me about the faith, first of all, right? And then second of all, they were always concerned about my well-being, right? If I had personal problems or emotional problems, they would, and no matter how many times I would, not that I was a bad kid, but even if I did something wrong, it was always, they always taught me in a loving way, whereas my stepmother would teach me in a very, you're just a bad kid way.
Yeah.
Which was a lot different. I've never felt that before, right? They would say, oh, we know you're a good person, we know you're a good kid, but this is what you got to do different now. As opposed to what I was used to, which was you're just a terrible child. Right? And so that was the first time I ever experienced that. And not only did they show me their own love, but they showed me how the Virgin Mary, Jesus' mother, loved us as well. So that was kind of the basis for me to begin to understand how the Mother of God could also love us, and she attracted me very much because I didn't have my mother; she wasn't around, right?
So how did they show you that? How she does?
I think a lot of it was just telling me about the love in general, and I think a lot of it was that because they loved me, that I saw the possibility that, well, if God had a mother, then she would also do the same thing. Right? And because she would be God's mother, it would be 1,000 times more than what they could show me, right? And that led me to understand that, well, God's love, God's own love would be, infinitely more than hers. And one thing this is actually a very interesting point because the prior, which is kind of like so there's an abbot and then the prior is right before, he's like the vice abbot, okay?
Yeah.
And the abbot is the head of, the head of the community. So the prior gave a speech saying God's love is 1,000,000 times more than our parents. Think about how much your parents love you. It's 1,000,000 times more than your parents, right? And then so there was a priest who talked to me and he said, well, if your parents' love is 0, 1,000,000 times 0 is still 0. So that kind of speech, that kind of sermon, it doesn't people who do not understand familial parental love can't understand it, because 1,000,000 times 0 is still 0, right? It made a lot of sense to me. So, right, and just I think part of what you're asking is that they showed me that she had a motherly love, and part of that was her devotion to the Son, right? It was unceasing, and she was with him every step of the way. Every step of the way, right? In unconditional love, as opposed to what I saw in my own family. And some of the intellectual appeal that I was talking about previously, first of that was the Trinity, which if you guys look on the sheets that we have out. So in the very beginning of John, which is considered by some scholars to be one of the deepest theological parts of the Bible, right? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Right? So, to me, of course it doesn't make any sense right off the bat, right? But in philosophy, they explained to me that the Greeks, this was written for the Greeks, and the Greeks to them